Welcome back to All Indiana Politics. Last week, we introduced you to the chairs of the Indiana Democrat and Republican parties. Well, today, we meet the new chairman of the Libertarian Party of Indiana. The party last week elected Evan McMahon to a 4-year term. He's been active in the party for years as development director, the executive director of the Libertarian National Campaign Committee, and was chairman of the Rupert Bonham 2012 campaign. We welcome in Evan McMahon. And Evan, thanks for being with us. We've asked this question of both Republican and Democratic leaders in the state. So we'll start with the same question for you. What is the current state of the Libertarian Party in Indiana?
Well, I think it's growing, which we can only really go up. We're the third party in the state. But, after Donald Rainwater, our gubernatorial candidate's success in November, he got 11.4% statewide and second place in 32 counties. So a third of the state, we were the second party. So I think we're growing.
And what do you credit that momentum with?
I think it's mostly comes down to voters, Hoosiers, looking at the two parties and not seeing consistency, not seeing, they say one thing and then they do something completely different when they're in office, and kind of getting tired of it, and knowing that libertarians have stood for the same principles and the same message since 1971. So.
And for people who aren't familiar, what are those principles?
Basically, it's you do you, I'll do me. Don't hurt people, don't take their stuff, personal responsibility and personal choice. So the government should let you make the choices for yourself and let you deal with the consequences of those choices.
Well, speaking of mask mandate, a very controversial issue, the governor has said he's going to lift that along with other COVID restrictions starting Tuesday. President Biden has urged governors across the nation to reinstate the mandates. Is now the right time to end mask mandates in Indiana?
I don't think there was ever a right time for a mask mandate in Indiana. I think that if the government had been open and honest about the situation and the dangers and risks, not given false information about just washing your hands, if you remember, that was the only recourse at the time. If they had been open and honest about it, people could have made decisions for themselves. And ultimately, I wear a mask in public. Most libertarians wear masks. We support the right of private businesses to require a mask to enter their business. But the government has no business telling you how to protect yourself or protect the people around you. It's not the role.
Do you think it was intentional, an intentional lie on the part of the government, or just misinformation?
Absolutely. I believe it was an intentional lie. There wasn't enough PPE to go around, and so they told people, hey, just wash your hands and stay 6 feet apart. And once there was enough PPE to go around, or, the masks, then all of a sudden it became, mask mandates and requirements. I think there was a lot more that they could have done to prevent the spread, but they just went the wrong way.
The governor's powers, should they be limited in an emergency? The House and Senate have passed bills saying that. Do you believe that the powers of the governor should be limited in an emergency? One
of the things that I actually like about being a Hoosier and our government here is that the governor actually has very little authority under the state constitution. Our original founders of the state of Indiana wanted it that way. I think that the governor overstepped his bounds. He has some powers, but I think the legislature fell down in their duty to challenge the governor. The governor said he asked the legislature if they wanted to call a special session early in the season, and apparently they said no. I think he should have done it anyway and let them pass regulations. The things that he did as governor weren't lawful, and it needed to be the legislators answering to their voters and their local communities for why these things were necessary or how they would be implemented. And I hope that they take that seriously in the future.
The governor, unlawful. Expand on that. What specifically are you talking about? The mask mandate?
Not just mask mandates, but capacity limits on businesses, changing hours of operations, closing businesses, saying you're curbside only delivery. There are, for every person that died in the state of Indiana, which my heart breaks, I'm somebody who's immunocompromised, so I took it very seriously. There's also a business that closed. And those lives are harmed just as well, So those powers didn't exist for a reason, because we don't have dictators that can take your livelihood away from you like that.
What is the #1 winning issue for libertarians in Indiana?
Well, I think that it's going to be taxes, personally. You know, the Republicans have a supermajority. They were bragging the other day that they have 88% of local government control. They have a supermajority in the legislature and all of the statewide offices. But yet our taxes have continued to go up. They're adding $4 billion to the state budget, raising taxes, creating new taxes every day. When you had the fuel tax that was added, that was only supposed to be paying for roads and infrastructure, and now all of a sudden it's not. It's going to a general fund. I think that that's going to be one of the things that really tips the scales for libertarians.
If you cut taxes, you have to cut spending.
Absolutely.
Where do you see that being cut?
I'm not the fiscal guy in charge of that, but I do know that there is a significant amount of waste. You know, we hear constantly about how little we're spending on education, but over 50% of our state budget goes towards public education. I don't think we have a funding problem. I think we have an allocation problem. There's, you know, reports of rampant waste in school corporations and in state programs. You know, a few years ago, we were told that we were paying $2 million a year in late fees for paying our bills. You know, there are lots of ways that the state can cut waste and inefficiency, but nobody wants to do that. It's just easier to raise taxes.
Evan, we'll end on this. Is Indiana going to legalize marijuana, and should it?
Should it? Absolutely, 100%. I don't think that people should be restricted on how they medicate or recreate. As an adult, you have the choice for yourself to decide what you want to put into your body. We have all of the states around us have legalized it, and if you think people aren't bringing it back with them, you're crazy. We should have that revenue and those jobs here in Indiana today.
All right, Evan McMahon, thanks for your time.
Thank you.